Hello and welcome to Open Education Superstars here at UMSL. This is a presentation from the UMSL libraries about OER on OER Week this 2022. I am Lena Marvin and I am here today with some UMSL OER Superstars. If you want to introduce yourselves now, we can do that. Go for it. Kate?
Yeah, happy to. Hello, OER interested participants. My name is Dr. Kate Vota, and I teach at UMSL in our honors college on campus. My background's in psychology. So those are the classes that I teach, small seminar style classes. And the other hat that I wear on campus is the UMSL-wide undergraduate research coordinator. I'm here in my craft room. This is my cat. That's me.
Fantastic.
So I am Professor Shannon Arndt. I am the Department of Communication and Media. I teach classes like professional communication and intercultural communication, and I developed my OER resource in 2019 and 2020.
Hi, everybody. I am Judy Schmidt, and I am a reference librarian at UMSL. I mostly work with the nursing and optometry colleges, and I have a background in textbook creation.
Let's start with what are we doing today? To begin with, just what is OER and why we love it, what defines an OER superstar, and who we are and what we've made. So to start with, textbooks are great. Textbooks are great. No denying it. They provide structure, they come from established sources, and they can introduce students to information in a clear, predictable, and appealing manner. Now, what's not so great about traditional textbooks is that the price of textbooks has risen about 1,000% since 1977, which is quite a bit. And if we look at just the last 20 years, the prices of goods and services that are common to college students are here on this, this graph. College textbooks continue to rise as hourly wages do not keep up. So this cost of textbooks has been a real bummer. To cope with the costs, we've had students employ a lot of different strategies, getting old editions, not purchasing a textbook, delaying purchasing a textbook, or sharing the textbooks between students. All of these things can impact the quality of their educational experience. So here, we know this is a problem here at in the UM system. We have some statistics about Mizzou, where you've got 61% of students who've chosen not to purchase a required textbooks or delayed purchase or believe that not having access to these materials have impacted their grades. So this traditional model is a publisher would reach out to an author and say, we want a textbook. And the publisher would hold the copyright on this textbook. The author sells it to the publisher, basically. And then the publisher sells that textbook to students who give the money to the publisher, and the publisher gives some money to the author. So this is the kind of traditional model where the publisher is at the top and money goes from the students to the publisher and textbooks come from the publisher to the students. And we are kind of hoping to turn that pyramid into a funnel where OER superstars provide OER materials to students and to other OER superstars so we can all work on it. So this model looks a little different. To say it simply, OER is both free and open, meaning the materials are licensed such that people are free to use them for teaching and learning and other purposes. A bit of what that looks like, if we look at this model again, there's still foundations and governments and universities and authors. Here at UMSL, our authors are part of the university, and anything they create or has a Creative Commons license can still be shared with the world. But there's a lot less money changing hands and a lot more sharing. So the first person who makes an OER book, they have that copyright that becomes a Creative Commons by them licensing it. And then another author can come along and take and remix other OERs together to create what they need for their class. And we are going to talk more about what that experience has been here at UMSL for a couple of our faculty, or OER Superstars, as I like to say. So free and permissions, this part can get really fuzzy. It can be pretty hard. I've made a very cluttered slide to help illustrate that. The idea is that it is free to share, to mix up, to use in different ways. And the most common license is a Creative Commons license, which I'm very fond of that one. And it gives you the 5 R's: to reuse, revise, remix, redistribute, and keep, to retain. So all of these are the permissions that we get with what we're doing with OER. So where do these come from? Well, there's a lot of sources, including like OpenStax or MIT or the University of Missouri St. Louis libraries and our OER Superstars here at UMSL. So these 3 textbooks are ones that have been crafted, remixed, redistributed, shared, and used. Well, not yet on one of them, but the other 2, we'll talk about those. These are our books. So whose book? Go ahead, pipe up now.
My book is the General Psychology for Honor Students.
Mine is in the middle, the Intercultural Communication.
And Judy and I helped redo a psychological statistics textbook, which is that introduction to statistics in the psychological sciences. So these are 3 OER textbooks that have been crafted here. Now, it doesn't mean that every bit of it was crafted here, because these are all kind of remixed materials that have different origins. So I'm very curious. Did you find it difficult to find these resources that you put together into your books? Either of you, go for it.
Okay.
Kate. No, Shannon.
Yeah, I can start. So I felt a little overwhelmed initially about the idea of OER because I thought it meant that I had to write all of the materials. And it was like, you need to write a textbook. So when I went to an info session on it, and if we kind of go back to the 5R slide, I realized that remixing was something I could do. So remixing is just taking things that have already been published under a Creative Commons or some kind of OER license. And I could, instead of choosing like one book that someone already made about intercultural communication, I could pick and choose from different textbooks, such as like sociology, psychology textbooks, things that other communication textbooks, a chapter here, a chapter there, and make the perfect text for me. And so that really changed everything, because I was kind of frustrated by the different intercultural textbooks that were out there for purchase. It wasn't exactly what I wanted to cover. So I was kind of, I didn't want my students to buy multiple textbooks. So it was really refreshing to me to see that I could be kind of a DJ, in Lena's terms, and kind of just take what works from different books and put them together. And my textbook is only actually 7 chapters, which is a little bit shorter than what I would normally have. So in the other weeks of the course, I was able to pull in things like podcasts or videos that are also open access to kind of provide a variety of materials for my students, which they love. So.
Yeah. Honestly, most of this will be piggybacking off of Shannon. I think just to contextualize it, right, I don't know if this sounds bad, but my original motivation wasn't necessarily cost. It was out of frustration with existing textbooks, and certainly their cost, but it was like the cost maybe would be worth it if they were like beautifully designed, and I just, to be frank, didn't think they were. I thought there was usually just way too much content to actually digest in a discussion-based seminar. So, right, so I had started before I even knew that OER was a thing. I was just like picking and choosing my favorite sources, either, individual chapters out of textbooks, or this also is an opportunity. I was supplementing them with like authentic in psychology, like primary source journal articles or those sort of things. And so I was kind of doing that before. And then, yes, I started attending UMSL OER workshops and events like today. And basically, found out that the idea of writing a textbook that may not be the exact language, but something like that, right, doesn't mean I have to sit down and write it, could put it together. And then also found, at least as a starting point, some websites or databases is what I want to say, but I know that's technically not right, of sources that were like collections of open. And so then I went instead through those and replaced, instead of using A, technically not open material, and B, just like Xeroxes of chapters, instead I replaced them with material that was open and was a little bit more attractive and easier for students to use. And then the back end benefit was, of course, that then it was entirely free and guilt-free and all of that. So yeah, so it's along with the librarians, it was quite a bit easier to find those close to exclusively open sources.
Very cool. So did, Kate, what kind of support did you get from your department or from students?
Yeah, so my department, again, is in the Honors College. I think we're all for it. The phrasing it like support, it's more just that there's been like no pushback, and it's more as more of us do it, the more we continue to do it with each other. I think what's happened, at least in our small, incredibly student-centered space, is that it's becoming more the norm. So I feel like it's not an explicit thing, like you would be shamed if you had like a $250 textbook in one of our classes, but like maybe a little bit. We're just kind of setting that norm, but I think it comes from a very authentic place that, I'm the representative for now, but I think everybody in the department, again, is, even if they're not doing it quite as organized and officially as like my textbook, I think that we've all been kind of cobbling together affordable resources for our students for a long time. It's definitely the culture there. Oh, and for students, I'll just say that there's kind of like pros and cons. One, I think they love not having to buy it. So I post mine onto Canvas, and sometimes I think the only thing that's kind of like the pushback is I still ask them to print it and bring it with them, because again, just we have discussions, so I don't want laptops out. I think that kind of removes that back and forth when we're all sitting around a table. So that I think is the only kind of pushback, but otherwise I only hear, usually when I'm like, so this means you don't have to buy a textbook, everyone almost always it's just like, yay, thank you. I think I perceive that they also appreciate that the textbook is very tailored to what we're actually talking about, that they haven't just read a 30-page chapter when realistically we're only going to be covering 10 pages of content in 50 minutes.
So Shannon, what kind of responses from either your department or the students have you gotten?
Okay, so similarly to Kate, my department is all for it. I wouldn't say, they're helping me create it, but that was the library really helping me. Lena and Judy and Danielle were great helps. And so with that support, I really felt like I could do it. And of course, I think from students, also, they're happy that they don't have to buy a textbook. Sometimes they're like, wait, I don't have to buy it. I don't understand that. And so I don't even think that every student knows that that's a possibility. But it helps definitely in the first week of class when other students are scrambling to purchase their textbooks. And especially nowadays, there's such delays on delivery. In another class that they had to buy for, I had a student who wasn't able to get the textbook until week 3. And so with the OER textbook, it's already there in Canvas. And like Kate said, some students prefer print format. So I'll just say, well, then print it out, go for it. Other students don't mind, so they just use it electronically. And yeah, they love the variety of materials. So it's not, every week they're not always reading a textbook chapter. Sometimes they're listening to a podcast and I provide the transcript. Sometimes they're watching videos. And I think that makes learning more accessible, and they can see themselves, I think, beyond college. They're like, oh, I can listen to a podcast and learn. And that just sort of makes learning more accessible in the future.
Oh, that's super cool. So Shannon, what would you have done differently next time? Or how are you gonna, I don't know, are we looking at another edition?
Well, so that's a great point. One thing is, we'll have to update it, right? So with any textbook, you can't use the same one for 20 years, unfortunately, fortunately, but yeah, it'll take work to update it. I think one thing that I gathered a lot of materials. I was really excited about the content. And so there were so many things that I wanted to share, but in real time, it's just a lot. So I think trimming it down and having sort of like less is more approach. I don't know. I guess I didn't know what was appropriate initially. And I'm like, okay, I can scale back on that, especially with the pandemic. It's like, it's just too much. So yeah, moving forward, I actually might create another source for a different course, just because I do love how you can really just pick and choose what works for you to cover. And so just not putting the weight on myself to make it 400 pages, it doesn't have to be super long and comprehensive.
Cool. Kate, same question. What would you do differently next time? And another edition? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The point about updating is, of course, a very good one. And, especially like it's just wild with topics that are kind of hot right now, how quickly they evolve. So a very concrete example is in Introduction to Psychology, we talk about just kind of the contemporary ideas of gender, sex, and sexuality. And, it's pretty entry level sort of content. But, the book that I had been using, the chapter from the book before I used this, misgendered kind of a famous trans individual. So, okay, well, that's definitely, and students notice, I guess is what I should say, that, they're the ones who are bringing it to my attention. And so then when I picked my open source, I think that was the area where Judy, I'm waiting for the opportunity to give Judy all of the credit in the world, because I took what was visually a hot mess of a collection, and she tidied it and made it accessible, and cannot honestly say enough nice things. Anyway, but as she was going through, I think it was in that section, but it may have been a different one. Either way, she found something that, again, was kind of like, I feel like this is maybe like already maybe a little out of date. And so we updated it then. And then even this past semester, again, just things move quickly. So this, that's kind of a long way to say that, yes, the updates are both essential, but then also really easy, right? You don't have to switch to a whole nother textbook. You can just kind of switch out that reading, or even if they're licensed to, I forget, but the, let's see, what is it? The revise, I, at least in theory, could go in and just be like, delete, fix that, So anyway, definitely updating differently next time. I I think getting librarians involved earlier. I spent a lot of time doing a lot of this work on my own, and please do correct me if this is not the case, but I get the impression from you all that you are open and eager and ready to help. So I have had my eye on updating the book that I use for a different class that I teach, social psychology. And then the other one that probably actually will be coming very soon is I'm teaching a whole new class, and it really is meant to be for kind of students in all social sciences. It's like an applied behavioral sciences sort of community engagement class. So for that, I actually don't just want critical thinking in psychology. You know, I want to be able to pull in from a couple of different areas. So I almost certainly will be picking and choosing from that too. So yeah, I think in terms of what I would do differently would be get the librarians started quicker, and maybe just trying to, like with this new one, I'm going to start with the open resources instead of what I had done in the past, just kind of how it naturally evolved, which was cobbling together from non-open resources that I just liked, and then having to switch over to the ones that are actually in the Creative Commons. So, yeah.
Great. So
can I jump in and say one thing about revisions? Even when you're just picking something up and remixing, one thing that I found is I would look at the images that had been used in the previous things, and sometimes they're no longer open. So it's a good idea to, if you do this type of remixing or revising, take a look at, find those images to see if they still have the license that you need for this. Because some of them don't, and then you have to just switch to a different image.
Smart. Mm-hmm.
And on the topic of revision, the system now has access to an online tool called Pressbooks, which is super good. And I am actually working on getting both of your books into Pressbooks, so you'll be able to revise them as you need. Will still help, of course. They'll just also be a web edition. So the Stats for Psychology book that Judy and I helped cobble together, it has a Pressbooks interface in addition to the PDF, and it's fun to see kind of the evolution of our options as content DJs or curators to get it going without the pressure of having to write stuff from scratch. And let's see, are you excited about so you've talked about a few new OER projects you might be looking at. Is there anything else about OER that you'd like to mention, tips or tricks for crafting OER? I'd really like the Ask the Library, because we are here for you. That's true.
And just like what Kate said, I cannot emphasize enough how helpful you all were. I mean, I kind of felt like I was doing it alone until I got you all involved, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to do it alone. And you all were so helpful, just like me to the right places to look. And then Judy came in and made everything pretty and accurate. And she kind of, so all of the different textbooks, their chapter formats were so different, and she just came and streamlined it all so it looked like it belonged together. Tons of work that I would have been drowning with, but I just felt really supported. So I really appreciate you all helping so much, because it would have been a really heavy lift for me to do on my own. Also, I've gotten emails from instructors in different states that say like, thank you, I came across your intercultural communication OER text and I'm using it. I'm so excited because there was nothing out there like this. And it was because I did the remix and pulled from a lot of different textbooks to make it what I wanted. And apparently it was something that other people wanted too. So it's always really surprising, but really nice when somebody reaches out and thanks you for putting this together. So I know it's being used elsewhere.
Yeah, I haven't that I can remember received from other professors, but students also look this stuff up. I've definitely had students come to me and, Dr. Vota, you wrote a textbook, and I kind of say, well, not really, but I did this OER thing.
Right. Is there any other questions I should be asking? Did I miss anything? All right. Well, if you're a winner, what you got, Judy?
I was just going to say that one of the questions that I was kind of anticipating was whether you need a lot of experience creating a book to do like what we all did, and you don't. So just keep that in mind. We will help anybody, whether you're a newbie or you've got 25 years of publishing experience like I do. We're here for you.
Mm-hmm.
I had 0 experience, so this was my first time, and then it makes it a little bit less intimidating the next time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agree with that. I think the only other thing that I would want to say, just to make sure that folks who are watching this know, is that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. So, right, so like for my Gen Psych students, I don't know exactly, I could do the math, but I would say something like 85 or 90% of our content is in this open book. And then there are some other days where, again, I'm supplementing it with like primary source journal articles, or like a video or something like that isn't open. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You just have to obviously make sure that students know that other material is there. And then, right, like for my other class I teach, social psych, I would be interested in moving more of it to open, but I'm doing a lot of the same principles of this like cobbling together process, even though they're not open sources. But again, I think they fall under fair use. So if you're watching this and feeling intimidated by, is this too much? Do I have to entirely redo my course materials? I would say in my experience, no. And that was a good gateway for me.
Part of what's nice is you both did a heavy lift and got a lot of material together. But for some folks, it might just be a single module of a class where they pull it from an open resource, and then they have something that just makes teaching easier because maybe they find half of one chapter of an open textbook and they're like, I love this half a chapter, I don't care about the rest of it. And then instead of telling their students, well, just stop reading at this page, they can actually cut the parts they don't want, and even rehost them with context and share them out to the broader world, and just show off what great materials are being chosen to be taught with. So my kind of tip and trick to follow up the question of how do we support OER here at UMSL. One of the first things you can do is go to oer.umsl.edu, and we have information, also how to email me. We have a link to Pressbooks. You can find out more about OER and how to use it. We have also mentioned in this conversation that it's also not just about open, it's also about affordability. Sometimes you're going to use your powers as an educator to fair use share something with your class. The difference is I can't share that in my institutional repository, which is where these items live. If you go to earl.umsl.edu, these are all books that have been used and crafted here at UMSL. But we also just have other OER works that have been used at UMSL, and it's been really fun. I like supporting OER a whole lot. And on that topic, so I thank you for your participation, all of you today. Thank you so much. And if you won and you're a winner, go ahead and reach out to me. There might be candy, there might be erasers, or a one-on-one OER session where we can dig into what are some of the resources that might serve your class.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lena.
Bye.